I now would like to ask Future Post Limited, Alistair Kirk, and CEO Dave Elder to present to Council. Welcome, Al. Floor is yours. Warm welcome. If you push the little button, it'll come up a red, and that'll tell you that you're all go.
Great stuff. Thank you. And we really appreciate the opportunity to come and discuss, I guess, about our business, but about the sustainability within our business, both from an environmental and also from a commercial point of view. Because the question's been asked about what happens to the plastics and how sustainable is it. So we want to talk today particularly around the practical applications of circular economy principles in the Nelson region with regard to the plastic waste that we're currently receiving and manufacturing into product in Blenheim. Right, so first of all, a quick introduction of the company and how it come to be. So we've been in production for 7 years now in New Zealand. So regarding the sustainability of the business and the products we're able to put out, we've moved from one factory initially in Waiuku to a second plant in Blenheim now. The business actually started in very much a Kiwi style. So Jeremy Winslick, who's the founder of the business, was a fencer and farmer in the Matamata region. And he was trying to put fence posts into the ground on a farm, and they kept breaking it. He couldn't understand why, so he dug down and found out he was in an old landfill, and he was trying to smash through some hard plastic that was actually in the ground there. So he said, "This is ridiculous. Why don't I take this out and try and make a fence post out of it?" So it's actually how the business started. So what happened with that is that actually started the business and went around the world looking for different technologies and decided that none of the fence posts that were being made were suitable for New Zealand conditions, but most importantly, with regard to microplastics and degradation, none of them were actually securing the plastic properly within the post. So Jeremy got together with an engineering team, and I come on as one of the original investors in the business, and we actually designed a post that would be more suitable for what we're after. So the posts that we have now that manufacture, and I'll say post and then I'll move later on to other products because post is where we started. They're as strong as timber with some additional flexibility in them. And sometimes that's a good thing and sometimes that's a bad thing depending on the markets. The UV stabilized, we go heavily into adding carbon black into our product, and the reason for that is that one of the two main causes of microplastics and breakdown of plastics is actually the breakdown under UV light, but secondly under actual contact in construction. So we spend about 30% of our product cost on UV stabilization. And it takes under testing, it takes our products from a 5-year lifespan to a 50-year lifespan under the UV in New Zealand. They're highly durable with great longevity and high traffic zones and bits and pieces, and I'll talk a bit about that when we get to the product range. But as an example, we've just finished 3 years of testing last week with the electricity industry in New Zealand is to use them as cross arms on power poles in New Zealand, and they've been very successful. We've had them sitting on the cook straight for 3 years, and they've gone very well in that area. They don't rot, and so obviously there's advantage in that. And obviously they don't have the treated contamination that some timber posts do. There's a real feel-good factor about the fact that people give us the plastic and then we give them back a product. And under the ethos of the business, we're a full product stewardship program. So any product that we actually sell into the market, we take back at the end of its life or at the end of its requirement at no cost. And we manufacture it back into another product. So we make sure that the cycle continues. And we're 100% New Zealand made, obviously. Thanks, Al. So the plastics that actually go into our product, initially they were basically an HDPE product, and that was under an arrangement we had and a relationship we had with Fonterra, where we were taking Fonterra milk bottle to manufacture the post out of. And working with people like the Packaging Forum, there was a real requirement with soft plastics to be added more and more into our products. So we played around with the range of product we had and the way we manufacture. And so now about 50% of the product that we put into our post is soft plastic, so LDPEs. And then very recently, we've had some approaches from organisations that are concerned about the lack of markets for reuse within New Zealand around polypropylenes, and then currently they're all having to be exported or landfilled. So these are things like car bumpers and bits and pieces, which are quite significant, the volumes that get sent away. And so we've again played with our mix and our manufacturing capability, and we're now adding that in significant numbers and volumes into our product as well. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about the circular economy principles of our business. So how do we achieve it? And I'll talk specifically around how we think we might be able to work more closely with Nelson Council as we do with other councils around the country. So we have reciprocal arrangements with some councils around the country where we take the plastics from the council, and our term, shared term with the Manawatu District Council is for not $1 more, we actually supply product back into the council that is made from the plastics and is suitable for use within the council program without costing the residents $1 more. So that's kind of the intention of how we work, and particularly with, I guess, the close geographical combination of plastics from Nelson going over to our Blenheim plant and coming back, there's an environmental footprint benefit in that as well. So we utilise, so our intention is to, and we already utilise Nelson's plastic waste, and we're very thankful for that, and very thankful to be able to do it as well, to be honest with you, because prior to us opening up the plant a year and a half ago now, that plastic was probably being exported at a large environmental footprint, or being landfilled, or something different than actually being manufactured into a product. Future products are effectively priced, and so we've worked very hard on that. When we first started the business, our manufacturing costs were about 20% dearer than a timber equivalent, because we're working in that post industry. We actually have particular parts of the industry now, such as the cross-arm industry that we're working into, and others where we're not only cost competitive, but in actual fact, we're cost advantage. And the same with bollards into councils and bits and pieces. We know we're able to supply them at a lower cost than the alternative products. And that's took us about the first 5 years to actually be able to get to that critical mass point in the business. Our products last 10 times longer than a timber product equivalent, and we've done the testing on that. We know that that's the case. But probably as importantly, at the end of its life, we take it back and manufacture something else out of it. So we keep this cycle going. The furthest we've been able to go at this stage is 5 times of use, and we may well go further, but we haven't had a requirement to do more than 5 times of use. Thank you. And so we also talk about gain share opportunities with councils around the cost of disposing of plastic against the cost of receiving back product, and the cost advantages of that. We're happy to share them with councils and do around the country. Thanks, Al. So I'm quickly just going to go on the 2-minute bell and talk about some of the products that we're now putting out. Some are quite new for us. We'd never done rails before. So last year we added rails into our posts, and that's allowed us to move significantly into the equine industry, as for instance, and into the construction industry. We supply bollards to councils around the country now. So we've moved from just being a fence post organisation to being able to be more a lot wider products that we put in. Thanks, Al. Signposting, and we work with, we're DOC registered for those products, garden beds into schools and communities and into private households. And obviously, so riparian fencing and waterways around the country, and marine use now. So we're getting some significant moves into not only the marine industry, but aquaculture industries where timber walkways and the like will rot under the ground, and we've been able to replace them with our products. So you can see that we've moved a long way from being a fence post into a viticulture market, into a range of products, and we've had to do that because if you don't diversify, you die. And so we're making sure that we're not dying. Okay, thank you.
Right on time. Questions from colleagues, and I'll take Councillor Benge and then Councillor Sanson, please.
Fantastic. This question, I just want to to make sure it's right. A normal treated fence post puts contaminants in the ground.
Yes.
What about these?
Yeah, great question. So we test every 2 years. And so we're now, our oldest fence post in the viticulture market, which was our original market, is 6 years. So every 2 years, we actually test the soil, not only where our posts are, but on the rest of the facility. And at this stage, we're no more contamination than any other part of the soil with regard to microplastics. With regard to the actual contamination of the soil, Al's going to talk a little bit about that, but there's actually advantage to the growers in the fact that we're not contaminating it with treated product. Al?
We're BioGrow certified for organic use, so food can be eaten directly adjacent to future posts. There's no evidence of CCA leaching, etc. So extremely safe plastic in the environment.
Thank you.
Councillor Sanson.
Thanks, to the Mayor. Thanks for your presentation. I gather from your presentation they have a lifespan of about 50 years. That's what's...
We warranty the post for 50 years. We expect them to last significantly longer than that.
And then I guess what's, like at end of life, I'm assuming they start to biodegrade or degrade in the environment.
So we take them back at the end of life, but we've been in the business for 6 years.
Yeah.
And look, we're really...
But still, because if we're putting them into the marine environment and into aquaculture,
yep.
so I'm
thank you.
curious.
So one of the careful things we do with our market is to actually pick the right type of markets. Viticulture has been an outstanding market for us because they redo all of their fencing and their planting every 25 years. So in actual fact, we've given them a 50-year product that we replace every 25 years. And in the discussions that we've just been having with Wellington Electricity about the cross arms that we're putting in, we're having those exact discussions. Their current output around their hardwood product that they put in is about a 10-year replacement program. So we're confident that our product can do that. So we're very conscious of the fact that we don't want to get to the end of life of our product.
Yeah.
So we actually pick markets where that wouldn't be the case.
So let's say after 10 years on cross arms, they replace them. What happens to those ones that are taken down?
We reprocess them and put them back into another product.
So it's just,
yep. And so they move from things like a viticulture post, which is our highest quality of product in, and then they'll end up being a garden bed, and then they'll end up being a rail on a fence, and they'll get further and further away from the ground is the intention at that stage. But they're also blended in at a lower capacity. So we always require 50 to 60% of a quality plastic. We then have 30 to 40% of a plastic that's suitable. And then we have 10% of other products that we could put in that actually get encapsulated in the process. Yep.
Final question. Contaminated plastics, that are dirty and that kind of thing. Are you able to process those, or are some of those going to landfill? I know I've read the consumer article.
Yep. So great question. So we have two sorts of contamination. One is called touch and one is called smearing. If we receive plastics that has smeared contamination, then we have to reject that at the point. And we're doing significant work now in better quality control on the plastic in to actually, rather than it being picked up halfway through the process and then having to be disposed of, to go back to organisations and say this is not acceptable. Plastics that have dirt contamination, for want of a better term, through touch, are suitable for us because it actually comes off in the process, and so that's fine. But that has been the issue for us, as you've seen, is that where it's smeared plastic and we haven't picked it up at the quality control at the start, it ends up being landfilled rather than sent back to the supplier of it.
And just supplementary to that, we recover over 95% of the plastic that arrives at our depot, and so it's a tiny proportion of what we process ends up in landfill due to that contamination.
Councillor Skinner, then Councillor Rollo, then again I'm going to need to wrap up.
Hey, thank you for that, and thank you for coming back since you were last here. And you, I was very impressed. Touching on that plastics you get, how do you, it comes through fairly raw, as in I imagine it's plastic bags, etc., or is it an organisation cleans and sorts, or do you do that at your?
Right. So if you're talking about the Plastic Forum product, it actually goes through an organisation before it gets to us.
Yep.
We have other direct plastic that comes from other suppliers that's within there. So there's a combination of both, but we have to do quality control at the time of de-sizing the plastic through shredding and granulation and the like. And we have a team that actually does that.
And is there a shortage of plastic? Is it easy for you to access it, or is there a shortage?
So there will be if you buy more from us.
Fair enough. And you talk about the LD, low density and high density. How much of the post, for example, was low density as in plastic bags? I mean,
Great question. So originally we were 70% of high density polyethylene that had to go into the post.
Yep.
Through our changes in manufacturing style and our different techniques we've been able to do, we're now down to 40 to 50%. And with our move into being able to add polypropylene in with the high density polyethylene, because they're the same melt flow, we're going to be able to significantly reduce that further. But in answer to your question, around about 50%.
so you could make posts out of 50%. It could be just bread bags, for example. Is it? Have I got that right?
Correct.
And then the other half would be high density plastics, like piping
Absolutely
and so
correct.
forth.
Yep.
And very last question. Housing for piles, etc., cabins, piles. Is that something? I'm sure there's hotlets thing. Is it something suitable for?
Well, I don't want to be rude, but as also one of the owners of the business, the cost of testing to actually move into the new markets is really prohibitive.
Yeah.
As I say, we're about to move into the crossarm. That's been 3 years of testing. And so anything in the construction industry in New Zealand is probably another $500,000 for us. And we're a privately owned business. And the reality is, yes, it's possible.
Yep.
Is it good business sense for us at the moment? Probably not.
Thank you for the insight. That's very helpful.
And Councillor Rollo.
Thanks, Nick, and congratulations on where you've come to. In terms of, I saw on the screen there you had a picture of a retaining wall and landscaping that's been done with your product. What do you measure the success in terms of? Obviously, whoever's doing that work may be cutting down a post to make it fit into that, part of the garden or whatever, in terms of actually getting that product back? Or is it one of these murky things? The construction industry is fantastic at just cutting in it, a loose end and then just binning it. Do you measure that product coming back, or is it?
So we make the posts in standard usable lengths. So there's minimal cutting required. If the customer is going to be doing a lot of cutting on site, we encourage a drop cloth. We'll take the cut-offs and any swarf created through that process, and we turn it back into new posts. It's certainly something we raise with anyone doing a bit of cutting.
Cool. And do you get, is that a good success story in terms of the return from the loose ends in that, or is it simply just if they're nearby, they'll bring it back to you?
They bring back most of the plastic, the people that are doing a lot of cutting, but in a retaining wall situation, the majority of the product, that the holes are dug to length, and so there's minimal construction or cut required.
And I'd add something to that as well, because I'm a waste industry guy traditionally. It's $25 per cubic metre less to actually send the product back to us than what it is to put it into landfill, because we have no disposal cost. And so we work with waste companies around the country on that basis. So there's a cost advantage to the user as well.
Wonderful. Can I again thank you for taking the time to present? We have a unique opportunity with you being so close in Blenheim as to how we work together. We'll have some informal chats amongst councillors, but I'd be certainly keen to understand what is our potential from a parks and reserves point of view if the product is cost competitive as to what that opportunity is. And I note that the product, I think, is being launched this week at Mitre 10 Nelson. And so good luck in the marketing of your product back into the community. There is that very real element of collecting the soft plastics and then being able to reuse it in our community. So thank you again for your presentation and good luck with your enterprise.